Alright, so this is the review for the FSA literary practice test. Since it is a poem, I've already went ahead and numbered each of the stanzas because we don't have that here. We only have lines kind of marked. So this is stanza 1, stanza 2, stanza 3, this little tiny one, and stanza 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is highlight the key words in the questions. So question 1 is 2 parts, part A and part B. Part A, what do the first 4 lines of stanza 1, those are the key bits there, suggest about the current situation of the soldiers? Current situation of the soldiers. So this one's specifically asking us to look at the first 4 lines of stanza 1, which are here. We're going to come back to the question because we need to actually really read the poem, but we're just underlining keywords. Part B, what does stanza 3 show us about the soldier's situation? So if the first 4 lines of stanza 1 are showing us something, stanza 3 is going to reveal something more about the soldier's situation. So I'm going to highlight stanza 3, and I'm kind of color coordinating this so it makes it easier for us to go back. Alright, number 2, another 2-part question. Based on stanza 1, which words best describe the soldiers? Best describe the soldiers. So we're looking for specific words that best describe the soldiers. Alright, and then part B, which 3 phrases, so specifically we need to identify 3 answer choices from stanza 1, so the phrase must be in stanza 1, that best support the answer to part A. Number 3, the following question has 2 parts, answer part A and then answer part B. Part A, circle 2 adjoining lines of the poem, and so we're circling lines of the poem. Alright, so 2 adjoining, that means 2 lines that are right next to each other, that show where the speaker begins to focus on the present rather than the past. And then what do these 2 lines best reveal about the speaker? Best reveal. Okay, and then what shift occurs? So we're looking for a shift or some kind of change. Shift in stanza 4. Alright, and then the following question has 2 parts, another 2-part answer. Think about how the 3 longer stanzas, 1, 2, and 4, function in the poem. Then complete the chart by copying from the list below to their proper place in the chart. One function applies to all 3 stanzas and should appear on the chart 3 times. The other functions will appear each appear once. I feel like that's probably important. So these are functions, and these are for each stanza. We'll see how we do that in a second. So then, how do stanzas 1, 2, and 4 work together to develop the theme of the poem? So how do these stanzas work together to develop theme? And then number 6, which statement best summarizes the central idea of this poem? So we will have to read the entire poem to be able to answer some of these questions. In what 3 ways, so we're going to choose 3 answer choices, does this poem challenge or disagree with the idea? So we're looking for a disagreement with the idea that to die for your country is a noble thing to do. Interesting. Okay. And then we have another short poem. So we have read the following poem and answer the short response question that follows it. In Dulce Decorum Est, so that's the first poem, the main poem, and Who's for the Game. Each poet presents a strong point of view about war. Write to compare how each poet develops a point of view and what effect each poem is intended to have on the reader. And this one is telling us to use text evidence from both poems. Okay, so let's go ahead and read the poem. Dulce et decorum est. So that's the title of the poem. Don't know what it means, but that's the title. Titles are usually important. They clue us into some things about poetry. Let's go ahead and read, see if the meaning of that title is revealed to us. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through the sledge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and toward our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshod. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time, but someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime, dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil's sick of sin. If you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie. Dulce et decorum est, pro pratia mori. We have this little number 1 here, which usually tells us that there's a definition. So the definition to this here is that it is sweet and right to die for your country. So the old lie, it is sweet and right to die for your country. Definitely connects back to one of our questions I do remember seeing. We'll get to that when we see it. Alright. So the first 4 lines of stanza 1, bent double like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through the sledge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and toward our distant rest began to trudge. So the current situation of the soldiers. They have come to depend on each other for their continued survival. Definitely not. Definitely not. They are depressed because they failed to achieve the day's objectives. I don't see anything about depression, so I'm going to rule that one out. They have been at war so long that they can barely remember their former lives. I'm going to rule that one out as well. They are retreating to their camp to escape the fighting. Okay. So, they are tired, cursing through the sludge till on the hunting flares we turned our backs. So yeah, they are turning their backs on the war, and they are moving forward. So, D here, oops, D is going to be our answer. I'm going to highlight our answers in pink. There we go. Alright. Part B. What does stanza 3 show? So stanza 3. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. So, if their current situation is that they're retreating from the camp, this answer choice has to kind of suit along with that. Alright, so the soldiers are not really able to leave the battle behind. Okay, that's a possibility. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me. So they're dreaming still about the war. So I'm going to leave that alone. Soldiers learn to fend for themselves during a crisis. There's nothing connected to that. The soldiers are capable of doing what they have to do. Sure, but that's not really revealed in stanza 3. The soldiers are so weary that their mental state is affected. I can see this, since their mental state has to do with their dreams, but if they're aware of their dreams, they're aware that they're dreaming, it's not really a mental issue here. So we're going to eliminate D as well. Although if we were to be narrowing things down, that would have left us with a possibility. The correct answer here is A. Because even though they're escaping the war, they're turning their backs on it, they're still seeing it in their sleep. So they're not really able to escape the war. Number 2. Based on stanza 1, which words best describe the soldiers? Okay, lonely and frightened. So I'm going to kind of look through. I don't see lonely and frightened. Oh, we're looking for how they feel. Okay, so they are together, so they're not lonely. They're with their whole team, so they're not lonely. Weak and exhausted is definitely a possibility because they're bent double, knock-kneed, coughing like hags. They're marching asleep, so they are awake, but they're so exhausted that it's like they're marching while they're sleeping. Angry and resentful. I'm not seeing anything angry and resentful here, so I'm going to eliminate that. Sad and regretful. I don't see anything sad either. Weak and exhausted is the correct answer. And as we'll see, so if we look at the phrases that describe our soldiers, we have bent double. Yes. Cursed through the sledge. Okay, so cursed through the sledge is describing the soldiers. However, that's connected to angry and not weak and exhausted, so I'm going to leave that alone. Haunting flares is not talking about the soldiers at all. That's talking about the guns that, or the weaponry, the bombs and whatnot that they're running away from. Turned our backs, they are taking an action there and turning their backs, but that's not connected to weak and exhausted. Marched asleep is connected to weak and exhausted. Drunk with fatigue. Fatigue literally means tired, so drunk with fatigue. Dropping softly behind is talking about the bullets or the gas shells, not the soldiers. So those are going to be our 3 best phrases. Okay, number 3. The following question has 2 parts. Answer part A and then part B. Alright, so circle 2 lines of the poem that show where the speaker begins to focus on the present rather than the past. So we're going to look. So past tense, we have words ending in ed. So marched asleep, that's the past. In ecstasy, but someone was yelling out, so was still the past. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, and drowning. In all my dreams before my helpless, this is happening right now in the present. So those are going to be our 2 lines. So we're going to circle those 2 lines. Okay. And then what do these 2 lines best reveal about the speaker? He wishes he had tried harder to help the man who is gassed. I'm not seeing anything about a man who's gassed. He has developed new and intense fears because of the world. Oh, maybe. Or war, maybe. He will likely never fully recover from what he has endured in the war. I'm liking that one. He sometimes cannot tell the difference between reality and fantasy. I could see how some of you might think that that would be the answer because of the fact that he's dreaming. But since he's aware of it being a dream, he can definitely tell the difference between reality and fantasy. So, our correct answer here is going to be C, because it's not that he's developed new and intense fears. There's not new fears. He's not afraid of something new. He's reliving this experience over and over and over and over again. So he will likely not recover from what he endured if it's coming up in his dreams. Alright, so I'm going to pause this here, so I'm running out of time on this loop. So I'm going to start again in 1 second.